So there's a lot of revival vibe around at the moment, which I'm loving. So now I don't want to bring it down, but amongst us looking to the future and what's coming, we need to be content, right? So today we're going to look at the secret to being content. So what do we need to do? We need to have, or what do we need to get to feel that settled and okay feeling about our present circumstances? So we'll see today, and we'll see if we can find a secret. All right. So 1 Timothy 6 says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we'll be content with that. But godliness with contentment is great gain." Now, I like sports, and I love a sporting analogy in a Sunday message. And I also love podcasts. And I listen to podcasts about all sorts of things. And one of them is about the world of tennis. Not a lot happens in the world of tennis. It just kind of rolls on. But I listen to this podcast that has a weekly or fortnightly update. And the podcast is called No Challenges Remaining, which is don't worry, it's a thing in tennis. It's a thing in tennis. So last year, there was an interview with an Austrian tennis player called Dominic Thiem. Has anyone ever heard of Dominic Thiem? Yes, a few. His top ranking ever was number 3. So he was sort of there or thereabouts. Still pretty good, still better than me. So a lot of us might not have heard of Dominic Thiem. So here is Dominic's tennis career in brief, okay? He's not a big guy. Like he's quite a sort of skinny-ish guy and kind of shortish, but he has a crazy good forehand, right? So he hits it really hard and with a lot of spin, like hits, kind of over the ball. And this helps in tennis because if the ball is spinning a lot, when it hits the other side, it grips the surface and it pops up, right? And so if you're on the other side, it's much harder to hit like that than it is that, right? Because you're kind of like reaching for it. So if you can get it to really pop, then you've got a big advantage. Anyway, never mind. We won't get into the mechanics of tennis. But suffice it to say, he's a very good hitter. Now, tennis has 4 major tournaments per year. Most of us know about the Australian Open because we pay attention to that, and Wimbledon probably. But there's the French Open and the US Open. Now, everybody wants to win those. Those are the pinnacle of the sport. But it's hard. It's hard to win. There's 128 players in the draw. So Dominic Thiem, our boy, he got to the final of the 2018 French Open, but he lost. He lost to Rafael Nadal. Then, next year, 2019, he got to the final of the French Open again, and he lost to Rafael Nadal again. Then, he got to the final of the 2020 Australian Open, and he was up 2-1, and then he lost. So he's none for 3 in finals. Okay, then he makes the final of the 2020 US Open, and the 20. You may remember a significant event in 2020. The world shut down. So the world shut down, including the tennis world, for about 6 months or so before they figured out how to have tennis tournaments. And so this was a one with no crowd. It was one of those. So in the 2020 US Open final, he's down 2-0, right? It's best of 5. And so he's on the brink of losing his 4th in a row. Then he comes back. He wins the 3rd. He wins the 4th. It's 2 sets all. It goes all the way to a tiebreaker in the 5th. And Dominic Thiem wins the 2020 US Open. So he's finally cracked it. Well done. So then a year or so later, he gets a wrist injury, right? And the way he plays, like we said with the top spin, it's very wrist heavy. So he has to have surgery and he has rehab, but when he comes back, it's not the same. He can't get the same pop on these shots. And that forehand, that was his big weapon, it's just not there anymore. So he tries to compete, but he's nowhere near the level where you need to be winning these major tournaments. In fact, he's not winning many matches at all. His ranking goes down, he realises he can't really compete, and he retires at age 31. All right, so this podcast had an interview with Dominic Thiem, because he's had a bit of time to reflect now that he's done with tennis. And here is what he says. Now, his English is his second language because he's Austrian, so he speaks German. So if some of it's a bit stilted, that's why. Okay, so he says, some weeks before the US Open, this is after he's lost 3 in a row, and tennis had paused, right? He says, I had a long car ride with my dad. We were going to do some sponsor appointment. We were talking about my career and everything, because it was during COVID and we didn't really know yet what was going to happen. And then I told him, look, I've lost 3 slam finals. I was really close, and I don't know if I stop my career at this point and not having a slam, if I can ever be really happy. All right? So he sounds pretty discontent. If only he could achieve this elusive goal, then happiness would be on the other side. All right? Then he goes ahead and does it. He wins the US Open. And this is what he says about the period after. He says, the period after I won the slam, the first few weeks were amazing. Then, by the Australia 2021, so that's about 3 months later, until 3-4 months later, a little bit before the injury happened, I was way unhappier than before. And experiencing this and living through this was really difficult, because basically all the emotions were coming up, all the thoughts I had before were coming up, and it was like I was on the road to nowhere, somehow in those weeks and months after. So yeah, it was really not easy. But as I said, now, like a very important period, because, oh, hang on, that bit doesn't make sense, because he said it in, he's still in English. But, so he says, you're always chasing a dream, which is never going to be a reality. It doesn't make you really happy at the end. He says, I was living way too much in this illusion. Like, if I get this, I'm going to be happy if I win this title. Playing tennis and playing on the tour will be easy forever. Yeah, exactly. And that happened. And he says, I was living way too much in this illusion. When I was winning the US Open, it worked for like 4 or 5 weeks. And he says, after that, he played with euphoria. And he also played till the end of that year like he was in euphoria. But then after that, I realised actually nothing changed. Like this ecstasy stopped. And then he says, when he relaxed a bit, all the high was gone. And then there came a really difficult period, because all these emotion, all these high activities, they were just gone. And then I realised that basically nothing changed. All right. So this win of his was only 5 years ago, it was 2020, but he says later he even realised that this thing, which is the pinnacle of his life and his career, he's kind of realised that most people won't even remember it anyway. So he says in some years or some decades, probably no one will really be interested in who won a Grand Slam in the year 2020, or even who won the Premier League. It's very tough, but sometimes I really have to tell this to myself to see the bigger picture and take all the other things apart. He doesn't want to lose the bigger picture. All right? So this guy has realised we can't find peace and contentment through our achievements. All right? You can't find it through what you do. It's not on the other side of something in the future, like his incredible tennis ability or his forehand. Because in a year or so, or within a few weeks of actually winning the thing, the feeling was gone, and then a year or two later, his whole foundation of being good at tennis was pretty much gone, right? Peace and contentment aren't on the other side of some goal or something we're striving for. All right, now, by coincidence, on the same day, because I churn through these podcasts so fast, right? On the same day, after I finished the tennis podcast, I was listening to another one, and there was an interview with a guy called Jason Calacanis. And Jason Calacanis is an angel investor. So what an angel investor does is, if you've got some super groundbreaking idea for a business, you can go to him and you can pitch it, and if they like it, they will fund it. They'll at least fund you in the initial stage, and then if it fails, well, it fails, and if it succeeds, then the angel investor gets like a chunk of the business. So their money can, times 100 or times whatever. So that's what he does. So this podcast was an interview with this guy. So like Jason, for example, was one of the early investors in Uber. So he gave them like their seed capital. All right, so he's pretty rich himself, but he knows, because of the circles he moves in, he knows a lot of ultra-rich people, right? So during this podcast, he was asked about some of the excessive wealth in America, you know, the billionaires and stuff. And this is what he said. He said, having had many friends get very, very wealthy, I can tell you, when you go out and have a steak or maybe a hamburger, there's no difference between 4 or 5 people going out and having a hamburger, and 2 or 3 of them are billionaires, or 2 or 3 of them are millionaires, or 1 or 2 are just regular working class people. It's no difference in the hamburger and the joy of it. Or if you go skiing, or you go for a walk, or you hug your child, it's the same experience for everyone. And if you actually have a large amount of wealth, it creates massive anxiety and unhappiness in most people I know who make a lot of money. And then they asked him why. Why do you think that is? And he said, because they've worked really hard and they believe that if they became famous or got 1 million subscribers and had all the money and the jets and the houses, that all the noise and insecurity would go away. And then it doesn't, which magnifies it. Then some realise that there's some process of dealing with these issues that money can't buy. Now, as far as I know, we don't have any billionaires here, do we? I mean, if I didn't go on so many cruise holidays, I reckon I'd be close. But I had a pretty good, forehand down the line when I was 15. But I'm not really a world-class athlete, and we're all pretty fit looking, but I don't know if any of us are world-class athletes, right? But finding contentment is not an elite person problem, it's a human problem, right? So all of us, we're probably not trying to find contentment through winning tennis tournaments or becoming billionaires, but we've all got exactly the same thing going on, but just in our middle class kind of way, right? So maybe you're single and you're thinking, I'll be happy and content when I get married. Or maybe when I get that job I really want, or when I graduate, or if my business takes off, or maybe when I get like that better car, or a bigger house, or even a house at all, or something like that. Something down the line where it's like, if I get that, then all will be well. Or if I just get to some level of wealth or savings or something like that. All right. Now, side note, all of these things are great things to be striving for and aiming at, because these are the sort of things that build good foundations for our life. But that's what they're doing. They're building foundations. They won't fix any insecurities or discontentment. All right. So getting new stuff is very exciting, but just like with Dominic Thiem winning, it fades away. It lasts for a little while. Like you get a thrill for a little while, and then you're right back where you started. And sometimes even worse, because now you've got what you thought you wanted, and it didn't do for you what you thought it would. So you end up in a worse place because we've set the wrong expectation there. All right? So, yes, we're not going to get contentment from our achievements or things or something happening in the future. So what are our lessons from Dominic Thiem and Jason Calacanis? They are, if we're looking for peace and contentment from our achievements or from finally getting to a goal, like winning something, it's not there. If we're looking for it from something we can do, like ripping a world-class forehand, well, that will not work either. That will not give us contentment because our anxiety will probably be even higher because we could lose that any time. All right, what about getting wealth or things? Is that going to solve our troubles? Well, that may take some pressure off your life, but you're really just swapping one set of problems for another. So, it would be nice not to have to, worry about paying your electricity bill, but no amount of wealth or fame or possessions or followers or subscribers is going to bring contentment. In fact, it's usually the opposite. It just brings more anxiety and does nothing, like he said, to quieten the noise and insecurities. And also, I was quite struck by the idea that the real joys in life, like having a nice dinner, or hugging someone you love, or hanging out with a friend, or just going for a walk, they're all accessible to pretty much all of us, and the experience is the same, whether you have $1 or $100 million, right? So contentment comes from somewhere else entirely. But where? Where are we going to find this elusive contentment? Right? What now? Well, like we said before, 1 Timothy says contentment with godliness is great gain. So there's a bit of a clue in what follows there. We brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of it. All right, so the answer's not in this world. Where could it be? All right, let's see Hebrews 13:5, which says, "Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" All right, so here's another clue. Here's a big clue, right? So same idea from before. Money or things won't do it, right? We don't need to be poor. Money's not the problem, by the way. As it says there, the love of money. So we should all be using our God-given abilities to acquire as much wealth as we can. See Jesus in the parable of the talents. But why can we be content no matter what, right? It's right there at the end. Because God has said, "I will never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." Right? God's mercies are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. And what does he say there? "I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you." Right? So if I never have one more dollar or one more thing than I have now, or never achieve one more thing, I should still be content. Why? Because God's got me no matter what. Right? And if as we saw back in 1 Timothy, if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Everything else is a bonus. Or actually, even more than that, it's a responsibility for us to use. Right? So whatever happens, God's got me. I know he's got it sorted. So how can we not have a foundation or a baseline of contentment if that is anchored in our soul and that's our foundation? All right? But what if there was a secret? What if there was a secret to contentment? So let's see Philippians 4. Look at that on the second line towards the end. There's the word secret, the secret of being content. Wow, we've hit it. It's got to be here. All right, so this is a rather famous verse, or rather the last line is, the last verse is, which is almost always quoted in and of itself, but we're looking at the whole context here. So Paul says, "I know what it is to be in need and know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength." All right? So Paul says, I have been through it. I've seen it all. I've been rich. I've been poor. In other places he says he's been shipwrecked. He's been in jail. People have let him down and abandoned him. But he says, I don't care what I have or what I don't have, or where I am, or what's happened to me. In and amongst all that, I've figured out the secret to contentment. And what is it? It's the same thing that we said before. It's God has got me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So if I've got God, then that's enough, right? Now, again, this doesn't mean we're not moving towards goals or planning or working and strategizing, because Paul was certainly doing that all the time. He was on a mission all the time. But within that, we're content. We're content that what I've got now and where I am now is where God's got me, and He is securing that, and He has got me. Now, that sounds pretty good to me. Nothing external to you, things you have or don't have, or your achievements or your relationships or lack thereof, for any of those things can shake you if you are content that God has you. His mercies are new every morning. He'll never leave you or forsake you. All right, have we got that? We are content because God has got us and he'll never leave us or forsake us. All right, now, having said that, I'm going to give us a bit of extra help, okay? Because day to day, so that's like that should be a baseline foundation for our lives. But day to day, I would say there is another key to contentment, and that is gratefulness and perspective. So I'm going to give us a couple of examples, okay, of where we lose our peace and contentment in day-to-day life, and we really ought not, okay? So Here's a few examples. All right, so a long time ago, I found myself in a position where I needed to get a job, and I needed to get a job fairly fast, right? Due to, anyway, it's a long story, but I had to get a job. So I ended up getting this job at a bank, right? So I was re-entering the workforce after being self-employed for a while, so I had to take whatever I could get. Now, this was not a great job, okay? It was fairly repetitive. We were sort of treated like a number, and there was like 50 to 100 of us doing pretty much exactly the same thing, and we were monitored super closely, right? Like, we had to be working at our desks and logged into the computer on 96% of our allocated work time, right? And that included toilet breaks, right? And I'm a big water drinker, so I'm racing there. I'm going as quick as I can. So one day, we're about 6 months into the job, and I'm in the lunchroom, and I'm just kind of thinking about how much I'm not into this job. And I'm talking to this colleague of mine called Amber, right? And Amber's about the same age as me, and her husband and her 4 kids, they had moved from New Zealand to Australia not that long ago. So to give their son an opportunity to play rugby league, right? He was part of the Penrith Panthers junior development. So I'm complaining to her about this job. I'm like, oh, can you believe it, right? And I'm quite discontent with my current situation. Then Amber tells me she loves this job, right? She is so grateful for it. She says her family moved here and they had no idea what they were going to do to pay for their lives. All they knew is that they needed to be near Penrith. That was it. And the rest, they were just going to figure it out. So she tells me she loves it. And her husband loves his job too. I say, what does he do? And she says, he's just doing like labour on a building site, right? And she says, they love being in Australia and their son can chase his dream. And he did okay, by the way. He played 75 games in the NRL for Penrith and the Bulldogs. So I think to myself, hey, Amber and we've got the same situation. We're turning up here every day, doing the same job, but we've got totally different perspectives. I am completely discontent with my situation, but her, because of her gratefulness and perspective, she's not only content, but she is actually grateful. All right? Now, here's another one. At my house, there's a tap in the downstairs bathroom, okay? A few weeks ago, one of them little filter things, right, in the tap, popped out, okay? So now when you turn on the tap, instead of being a nice stream, it's going everywhere, right? It's going sideways, it's going all over the place. And it really annoys me. Every time I try to fiddle with it, right, it annoys me. So I try to put it back in or make it, and it just makes it worse. It just makes it worse. All right, so, I kind of lose my general level of contentment with this water tap quite regularly, right? Last week, we heard about the water borehole that had been drilled, right, that has changed the lives of a whole community. And you just remember that video of them? They are just so grateful and so happy that they have water. Like, they would not care less if the water was like going straight into their face and up their nose every time, right? They'd be thrilled. And I'm worried that it's going over like this distance, right? Gratefulness and perspective, all right? What about just taking a high-level look at our lives and the society we live in, just the baseline level of our lives? Because sometimes the key to contentment day to day is just appreciating the little things. All right, have you ever seen those paintings or pictures of like the Roman emperors and that, right? See that, that guy, right? You know where they're in the courts of the Roman emperor or whatever. So their life was, they're just lying around on lounges, and this was like the ultimate, this was as good as life got. This was the ultimate symbol of wealth and luxury. So what did they really have though, right? So this guy, he's got leisure time, right? He can do whatever he wants. He's got unlimited food and drink, right? Like the being delivered grapes type situation, all right? He's got people to serve their every need. There they all are around him. And you know, sometimes in these pictures, like there'll be people off to the side, like waving these huge feathers, right? Now, apparently that was like a full-time job for people, and their whole thing is temperature control for this guy, right? That's all they're doing. They're just fanning him. So that's as good as life got. All right. Now, let's think about our lives today, right? Have you got a lounge? Yeah, right? You can lie down on your lounge like that guy. Have you got air conditioning? Or have you even got one of them $15 fans from Kmart, right? You've got temperature control better than that guy does, right? Have you got Uber Eats on your phone? Or have you got a full fridge, right? You've got unlimited food and arguably a larger variety of food than the best lifestyle back in those days, right? And it's the weekend. So we have 48 hours of leisure time. We've got pretty much, not limitless, but we have got plenty of leisure time. So you have a better situation on the average Saturday afternoon than this guy did back in the day. So we really should be content, right? We really shouldn't let the little things bother us and steal our peace. A little bit of perspective and maybe our baseline contentment should be okay, all right? So, contentment with godliness is great gain. And what is the secret to get it? The big secret is trusting God, that He knows what He's doing, and wherever we are and whatever we have, that's where He wants us, at least for now, right? How can that not give us a baseline foundation of contentment and peace? And what else is going to help? A bit of gratefulness and a bit of perspective, right? God will give us our food and our drink, and He's promised to look after our basic needs. Everything else we've got is a gift from Him, and we should be super grateful. All right? Things in this day and age are pretty great, right? Your life day to day is the envy of most people who ever lived, and frankly, most people living today. Like a lot of what we have is other people's unreachable dream, right? And we just take it for granted all the time. So with all that, let's practice a bit more contentment, no matter what our present circumstance is. We're going to plan for the future for sure, but we're content with where we are now, and we're thankful and we're grateful to God for what we have. Because contentment with godliness is great gain. All right, communion. So, every week we do this little thing that reminds us that we have peace with God. We can be content in our relationship with God. We all have a sin problem. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But, great news, God sent His Son, one would almost say good news. God sent His Son Jesus to take our sin burden. So, if we repent and we put our trust in Him, our sin is forgiven, and we're at peace with God. So we've got a little juice and a little cracker that we do as a reminder. It's not magical or anything, it's just a reminder. And we do it every week. So let's do that at the sides and at the back. Thank you.